Lottery defeater software, complete review, more information video description link below this video. Convenience store owner threatens man. After hitting his fifth lottery winner in 3 months, he couldn't believe I was being threatened by the convenience store owner. I thought they were the ones who got held up, not the other way around, and yet, there I was, standing in an empty QuickMart, with a gun pointed to my head. The man said he was on to me, that even though he didn't know exactly how, I had to be doing something fishy, that he just simply couldn't believe there was any way for a person to win the lottery 5 times in just 3 months, let alone from his single store. I tried to tell him that I wasn't doing anything illegal, or cheating, or breaking any rules, that I just had a simple system I was using, and that it happened to work really, incredibly well. Heck, I even offered to share it with him, but the angry man just wouldn't listen, and I was afraid that I was about to die, and I shudder to think of what would have happened if a group of teenagers hadn't come into the store right then, forcing the raving mad business owner to quickly put away his .44 caliber. But as soon as they did, I ran for my life, making it to my car and burning rubber, as I peeled out of the parking lot and towards the safety of my home. Until that night, I'd been on such a high. I mean, I'd won more than $324,000 in the last 4 months, just by playing the lotto and using a deceptively simple system I'd created to predict winners. I'd settled all of my debts, some of which had been haunting me for years. I'd taken my family to Disney World for 2 weeks, where we stayed in their royalty suite and really did live like kings. I'd been able to buy my 2 sons all of the clothing they'd been wanting for years, new basketball shoes, top-of-the-line new bikes, everything. I'd even just closed on the house of my dreams, a 2-story brick home in a beautiful quiet neighborhood, in the best school district in the entire county. But having that gun pointed at my head sure snapped me back to reality in a hurry. I realized that if I was going to keep using this breakthrough system I'd created and keep building long-term wealth by putting more and more money in the bank with it, I'd need to start being a lot more careful, because here's the truth. Once you know how to crack the lotto code, which is what I want to share with you in this short presentation, there are going to be a lot of people who aren't happy about it. As you hold winner after winner for months at a time, you'll have to start rotating the convenience stores where you buy your tickets, because the owners hate having to pay out cash from their registers. And even when you win the larger prizes, $4,000, $14,000, maybe $140,000 or so, these store owners and managers still won't be happy. They become afraid the state will start investigating them and trying to figure out what makes their store so special. That's the thing though, it has nothing to do with their store and everything to do with how you're picking your numbers. That's the secret to how I've managed to win the lotto 5 times in the last 3 months and 14 times in the last 2 years. These winners weren't all major jackpots, by the way. Some of the tickets were just for $8,000 or $14,000, not enough to make you rich, but certainly enough to make your life a whole heck of a lot better. And it's the same secret a small handful of other lucky people have used to do the same thing once. I shared it with them, people like Edward M. Barber from Sunnyvale, California, who recently wrote me saying, "Kenneth, I'm just writing this quick note to thank you for changing my life. This month I've already hit the lotto 3 times, for $13,200, $120,182, and $38,492 respectively. Some months aren't quite as crazy as this, but regardless, I've been averaging around $22,000 per month, and it's all thanks to your system. And, speaking of your system, I still just can't believe how easy it is to use. Even a toddler could use it. I'm glad you're not going to share this info with too many people, because if you did I think the lottery would go out of business." Edward M. Barber, Sunnyvale, California. And Anthony Hill, from Los Angeles, California, who says, "I can't believe it, 5 wins of $5,000 per more over the last 3 months. If you told me a few months ago that I'd be winning like this, I would have said you were crazy, but your formula is so easy to use, and it's so insanely accurate. Now I know that my family and me will be financially set for life." Anthony Hill, Los Angeles, California. And Richard Hufford, from Garfield Heights, Ohio, who says, "When a friend of mine shared your website with me, I thought he was nuts. There's no system to beat the lottery. I told him, you're crazy." But after watching him hit his 3rd jackpot in 6 months, for a total of more than $1,242,000 in winnings, I started to think maybe he wasn't so crazy after all. So I gave this a try, and my God, am I happy I did. I just hit my first jackpot for $124,000, and it's only been about 29 days. I can't wait to keep winning." Richard Hufford, Garfield Heights, Ohio. Now, as a professionally trained statistician, if you had asked me just 3 years ago if there was some secret to winning the lottery multiple times, or to actually knowing in advance what the winning numbers were going to be, I would have probably laughed in your face and called you a fool. I mean, I did know that on some level the games all had to be beatable, because they've been designed by humans, and therefore it was impossible for them to be flawless. But if winning the lottery not just once, but even multiple times was so easy, then we'd all be millionaires, right? Fat chance of that, I thought, and until just a few years ago I'd never even bought a lottery ticket in my life. But all that changed last year. The Powerball jackpot had just hit more than a couple hundred millions, and, as the night of the drawing arrived, it seemed like all anyone was talking about on the news or at work was this. Now, my job had some stability, but it didn't pay much, and I was also carrying a lot of debt on my shoulders, something that constantly seemed to be weighing my family down and holding us back from getting ahead in life, and I always did feel like I was always just scraping by. I certainly never was in a position to buy or even drive a fancy sports car or to live in a nice home where I felt like my family would be both comfortable and safe. A lot of months, I wasn't even sure about where the money would come from to pay for my kids' school supplies or to put 3 healthy meals on the table. My wife was working 2 jobs, and it was making her exhausted, and she swears even causing her to age faster than normal. I mean, we weren't desperately poor, but we were struggling, and, of course, like so many other Americans, I was tired of it, so I decided, what the heck, and I went and spent $20 at the local convenience store to buy 10 tickets. There goes $20 down the drain, I thought as I watched the news people interviewing the woman who had won, an elderly lady from Central Florida, sobbing with joy and talking about all of the wonderful things she planned to do with her newfound riches. After that, it was back to the grind, working hard for not enough money, rarely seeing my wife, because of her 2 part-time jobs, trying to give my kids a normal life, even though their mom and dad were always either at work or exhausted. But, even though I hadn't won, there was something that kept nagging at me. Why is it that there are a small handful of people who have won the lottery multiple times, while the rest of us never seem to ever win? I mean, I don't know about you, but it seemed like I was always hearing stories about these incredibly lucky people who'd hit their 2nd, 3rd, 4th, or even 7th ticket. The headlines were everywhere. The Texas Lottery never investigated Joan Ginther, who won $5.4 million in a 1993 Lotto Texas drawing, then hit it big in 3 scratch-off games, $2 million in Holiday Millionaire in 2006, $4 million in Millions and Millions in 2008, and $10 million in the $140 million Extreme Payoff in 2010. And how about the case of the lucky airdrie who won in 2009, $17 million in the Canadian lottery, after he has won other 4 jackpots of $1 million, $100,000, $57,000, and $1.3 million, or the case of the Fort Smith woman who won more than $7 million after beating the lottery for the 3rd time, or the case of the Florida man who first won $3 million and the next year, he cashed in on another jackpot of $10 million, or the amazing story of the Panama City Beach man who won the Florida lottery twice in less than 6 months, becoming an instant millionaire, or the fantastic case of the man who won the Play 4 lottery 568 times, collecting more than $2.8 million in just 15 months. These are just a few of the cases of apparently normal people who had won the lottery not once or twice, but 4 times, 5 times, or even 568 times during a very short amount of time, and it seemed kind of weird to me that this was going on, that there was just this tiny group of people in this country who were really, really lucky, or were they? I looked at the probability of all this, by the way, and I saw that for any pick 6 type game, the odds of winning around about 1 in 13 million. Obviously those are great odds, but they just made me even more curious about what these multiple winners were doing that I wasn't. I mean, did they have some sort of lotto winning secret? Did they know something that the rest of us didn't? I just had to know. It was causing me to lose sleep at night, and so, over the next 6 months I did something pretty crazy. I did some detective work and found out their phone numbers. Then I started picking up the phone and giving them a call. At first, a lot of these folks were pretty guarded. After all, once you've won hundreds of thousands, or even millions of dollars in the lottery, a lot of people want to be your friend, but they may not all have the best of intentions. That's actually something you're going to need to remember, because after I show you how my winning number system works, and you start winning a pretty good size payout pretty much every month, 5 grand or so here, 14 or so a grand there, on and on and on, you're going to have a lot of friends, family, neighbors, even complete strangers trying to ask you for money, especially if you're not careful, and don't keep a low profile, so please, make sure you're smart about your winnings. Well, anyways, it turned out that most of these multi-time winners were actually pretty good folks, and, after I explained to them who I was, and that I was just curious, because I was a mathematician, but that I wasn't after their newly earned wealth, most of them had no problem spilling the beans and letting me write down what their secret was. It was really interesting. Of the 30 different multi-winners I talked to, 27 of them had a personal formula or method that they swore was the key to hitting 4, 5, even 6 numbers on a draw again and again. What was also really fascinating was that while none of these folks were using the exact same method, the more and I looked at my notes and studied each formula or system they'd given me, the more I started to realize that they all shared some important similarities. Well, being a statistician and total math nut, I began crunching numbers like you wouldn't believe. I took their different formulas and played around with them, combining the key elements of each and adding a few additional principles of probability that I knew should increase the chances of predicting a winner even more. I became obsessed with reviewing the winning draws for all of the different major lotteries each night to see if the formula I was slaving over was showing any promise. For a good long while, about a year total I'd say, I didn't have anything to show for my hard work, and then it happened. I was on the 127th variation of the formula, and I'd just used it to try to predict the winning numbers for the most recent Fantasy 5 drawing. As usual, I went online to check what the real winning numbers were, but what I saw made my heart stop. The system I'd been working on had accurately predicted every single number, all 5 of them. Well, at first I was actually really mad. If I'd actually bought a ticket using my numbers, I would have won $229,881. That sucked, and I started kicking myself for being stupid, until I realized something. The formula I'd been creating and perfecting for nearly 2 years seemed to have worked. Of course, it could have been a fluke, so I had to keep testing it, but you better believe, I didn't just watch from the sidelines anymore. Instead, I took about $40 and bought tickets for several different popular games, things like Mega Millions, Powerball, Fantasy 5, etc., and sure enough, 4 days later, bam, there it was. More information, video description link below this video.